Jazakallah khair. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. All right. Bismillah. Salatu wassalamu ala Rasulillah. Cool. Thank you, Dr. Samir. Thank you, Brother Irfan and the Muslim Youth Association. Alhamdulillah for allowing me to speak. May Allah keep your endeavors sincere and solely for His sake, inshallah. May I accept all our intentions, no matter how small or insignificant they may seem. And I also would like to acknowledge the traditional elders, custodians of the land that we are gathered, inshallah. Darug people. Pay my respects to the elders, past and present. All right, Fitra, as Dr. Samir pointed out, is from the beginnings of origin. Allah is Fatir, the originator. This is just to retrace one idea I wanted to talk about, or to relate, is not just about the origination of the Fitra and about this primordial nature, but also the splitting or this breaking apart. Just quickly, Lisan al-Arab talks about fatru or futur, meaning to shaq or to split, crack, a thing which opens up. Like futur is the time we break our fast. We open our mouth and have food and drink. So iftar. Also the Quran mentions in fitar, or the Lisan al-Arab talks about tafattara. Right? When it's tafattarat al-ard, the nabat, like when a seed breaks through the earth, it's coming out of the earth. If anyone's planted seeds directly in the garden, you can see this. It starts to germinate, opens up, shoots out this. The shoot comes out and then goes out to the sunlight, the emergence. Right? And if we think about our existence as a human being, it's also related to this tearing or this splitting from our mothers, the emergence into the world. Wujub, like if the mother reaches the point of her term, in pregnancy, the child has to be brought out, or has to come away from the mother just to save, otherwise this could be a risk for the mother. So we have to leave that space of comfort, voluntarily or involuntarily. Right? The Quran says, Wallahu akhrajakum min butuni ummahatikum. Akhrajakum. You left or pulled out, extracted, evicted, so to speak. All right, as the poet said, into this house we're born, into this world we're thrown. So if we think about that, also similarly, the end of our life in this world is our souls leaving our bodies. So there's another point of extraction or separation. Right? The Prophet ﷺ reminded us to remember death often, but he didn't describe it as death. He said, remember the cutting off of enjoyment, the destroyer of pleasures. Akhiru hadmi ladati, laddat, the pleasures that we are being cut off from. So this is, we arrive suddenly and we leave suddenly. So we split from our mothers in the beginning and we split from our bodies in the end. And I want to come back to that, but obviously this is an idea of fitra and we want to talk about that, the primordial nature. Right? This idea of what are we naturally inclined to do? What is the essence of the human being? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said that the jinn and the people were only created to worship. وَمَا خَلَقْتُ الْجِنَّ وَالْإِنسَ إِلَّا لِيَعْبُدُونَ, except to worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Right? وَمَا أُمِرُوا إِلَّا لِيَعْبُدُوا اللَّهَ مُخْلِصِينَ, to sincerely and to incline towards good. Hunafa, right? لَهُ الدِّينَ hunafa. So Hanif, this thing which is to incline towards good and to go away from that which is evil. This is in our nature. This is our natural sort of fitra, our natural state. And that Abraham alayhi salam, bal millat Ibrahim hanifan wa ma kana min al-mushrikeen. So even in that, in the essence or in that nature, we also have the understanding of not associating any partners with God. Not putting God association with anything. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the one. right? This ubudiyya is created to worship. Servanthood, meaning to be servants, right? Literally to be in service. But this is our creation. This is our, as Dr. Samir pointed out, what's stamped, right? To be in the service, our worship is to be in the service of God, and to be in the service of God's religion. And be in the service of God's creation, to benefit others. The best of you are those who benefit others, who have this, who show benefit, right? Who bring benefit to other people. So what's going on? What's happening today? If our fitra is this created inclination, our created default, our natural default is to worship, be in service, inclined towards good, to bring benefit, then, and we're not just talking about the Muslims, we're talking about the creation of Bani Adam, creation of the human race, creation of the people, this innate primordial nature to serve and be beneficial. But if we observe what's around us, it seems contradictory. There aren't really that many people that are trying to do this. There obviously is good. But at this rate of destruction, it just doesn't seem to be connecting to that. And I want to get out the largest paintbrush I have, and we're just going to go through and paint some really broad strokes and the idea of what's happening, just to refresh everybody. Alhamdulillah. We're facing the global crisis, and it's interesting that it sort of is an anomaly to be talking about environmentalism or to be talking about the global problems in a setting which is not necessarily based around the environment. It's more based around our nature. But there is a connection that we have to understand, and it's important that Muslims understand this on a very, very fundamental level. So I'm going to go through this real quick, because not everybody might be familiar with the ideas of environmentalism or global crisis and things like that. We see this or that and maybe give it a swipe and just keep moving. All right, so rising CO2 levels in the atmosphere because of the pollution, despite the ozone layer, which protects the planet, is being depleted, and it creates more overheating, more global warming, creates an imbalance, the oceans and the environment, the melting ice caps, rising sea levels, acidification, overfishing, extinctions, coral bleaching, runoff from the chemical agriculture, creates more algae, blocking the much-needed sunlight for sea life and the plants. Weather patterns become extreme, increase floods, droughts, destructive storms, seasons become erratic, and many people see this as alarming. A lot of the problems are irreversible, such as mass extinctions, loss of biodiversity, and depletion of the fossil fuels. And there's imbalance almost everywhere we look. Deforestation, habitat, soil degradation, depleted arable land. In another 5-6 years, we could have 10% of our forests left. In another 100 years, nothing. So the trees are going. 52% of our soil is already degraded, and this could be up to 90% in 2050, less than 30 years away. If we look at the plastic pollution, invisible problem in another, it's such a visible problem, in another 25 years within our lifetime, there could be more plastic in the ocean than fish. This is if we keep going along the way that we're headed. 10 million tons dumped annually in the oceans. 10% of the microplastics in our ocean are from textiles, fashion. 40% of this waste is packaging, just packaging stuff up. So we don't go to the shops anymore, everything is Amazon and online. It's easy. We live in a world of convenience, but who's the convenience for? Where is the convenience for? The planet. It's convenient for us. Plastic takes about 400 years to break down and originates from the fossil fuels that have been stored underground for millions of years. So within the last 100 years or so, we've begun to tap into these prehistoric reserves. And guess what? We have maybe 50, 60 years left of consumption at our current rate. The textiles that we use, fashion, production, and waste accounts for 8 to 10% of our global CO2 emissions. And they'll likely double by the end of the decade. Less than 6 years. 90 million tons of waste every year just in textiles. Equivalent to one rubbish truck. in a landfill every second. All right. That's fun. If we look at the problems more closely, we can see this disproportionately affecting the global south. About 40% of the carbon emissions are from the wealthiest 10% of the planet. And the bottom 50% is producing about 12% of the emissions. So the lifestyles of the rich and famous are not for the south. All right. But did I mention the lower standard of living, lower income, higher poverty, greater populations, inadequate housing, lower education opportunities, deficient healthcare systems? Just put that out there. All right. In Australia, our per capita use of fossil fuels is second only to the United States. More than China, more than UK, more than Germany. Almost double each of these countries. But this is not the total for a country. This is saying per person. We're triple the global average. More than any other country, except the US. Good job, guys. Number 2. All right, our world is in crisis, and I'm not even being pessimistic. It's not that bad, right? Not yet. Ask my 7-year-old, he tells me that the air quality will be so bad in the near future, we're going to be wearing gas masks just to go outside. Yeah, give it some time. So according to the Australian Academy of Science, the best available evidence indicates that greenhouse gas emissions from human activity are the main cause of climate change. This is amazing breakthrough. So what are we doing? Over 50 years ago, E.F. Schumacher explained that the real problem of our planet is not economical or technical, it's philosophical. He said, an attitude with life which seeks fulfillment in the single-minded pursuit of wealth, in short, materialism, does not fit into this world because it contains within itself no limiting principle, while the environment in which it is placed is strictly limited. So we're living off of finite resources with a system of economics that is infinite. And there's no moral imperative to stop consuming, or so it seems. The materialistic framework has to be dismantled. It's actually killing us. We can no longer afford to make future projections on available resources and wait for something to happen. There has to be a fundamental shift in the paradigm. It's our attitude or our nafs that has to grow out of these infantile pursuits. Paul Hawken explained that one of the most significant discussions was regarding carrying capacity, the ability of the planet to sustain life. And scientists were asked, how long will our resources last? It's no longer about will it last, but how long before we change direction. Like they say, if we don't change the direction, we'll end up where we're headed. Has anyone looked where we're headed? Because it doesn't look good. Just saying. How long can we ignore the problem, not treat it as a problem, and not see it as a crisis? Hawken went on to explain the problem we are facing regarding the economic framework is based in a system that has to maintain growth to survive. The economy has to grow infinitely, but that's impossible. The resources are not infinite. So how can the system grow infinitely? It can't. And until we change the framework of the system, we can't fix the problem. Consumer culture doesn't fix the problem. It just keeps us distracted. Jared Diamond talks about it in a book. It's called Collapse. Describes how nations fail or succeed based on 2 main principles: how well the societies perceive the problem and how well they respond. He mentions a term, it's called creeping normalcy, describing slow, concealed trends when things take place slowly over time. They go unnoticed, usually. But why is this normal? We've been talking about climate change for 30, 40 years. Nothing new, right? Just fluctuations. Summer's a bit odd this time. That's it. So how do we see these issues and not think? We need to change. We need to see it. We see it. We do see it. I think visibly it's in front of us. Sorry. You want me to start again? Okay. We see it. We understand it. The data is out there. It's not just about the plants. It's not just about the biology. It's not just about the species loss, the extinction, loss of biodiversity, deforestation. It's the whole thing. Our existence is sacred, and life is sacred. This planet and the life that exists are a sacred trust. The question now is, can we begin to see ourselves and the life on this planet as equals, both existing alongside each other? Can we see the organisms in nature and ourselves as organisms, coexisting together as an interwoven forms of life? David Heath is a beekeeper from the UK. He does a lot of natural beekeeping stuff. He outlines a set of environmental ethics, describing 4 moral stances or attitudes. He leaves out the 2 extremes, and he describes these 4 based from anthropocentric to biocentric. He calls them the dominator, the steward, the partner, and the participant. Beginning with the first 2 is one who exploits the environment for their benefit. And the next one is the steward, who sees limits but places himself over the needs of the environment. The latter 2 are more centered around respect and sustainable relationships with the natural environment. The partner views himself and the environment as allies, but separate. The participant willingly sees himself as interconnected and an integral part of the natural environment that he lives in. They both complete each other. They exist together as interdependent life. I'm not saying that our Islamic ethos agrees with everything about the biocentric participant approach. I think there are benefits. Ultimately, it's our perspective that needs to change, and we need to be open to changing it. The general perspective is that the world is separate from us. We extract from the world, and it gives us what we need. This relates back to the idea of domination, not stewards and not partners or participants. This view of separation exacerbates the problem. If we only see the world as an ATM, we don't really have a future, not for long. We have collectively become the ones who spread corruption and spill the blood of the innocent. The Quran describes the angel's concern at Adam's creation and his delegation of authority when your Lord said to the angels, I shall place a noble reigning deputy on earth. They said, will you place in it the one who will wreak corruption in it again and again and spill much innocent blood? Will we extol your infinite glory and praise and your exalted pure perfection? And Allah says, indeed, I know what you did not know. So where's the responsibility? Where's this responsibility of being a noble deputy? Because it's not just authority we've been given, but responsibility. It's nice to be placed in a position of power, but there's responsibility. We have taklif. We have been given a trust, a duty, and we are accountable. Think about it. We are not only accountable to our Creator, the originator of the heavens and earth, but to the creation, the world around us, our children, and those who come after us. Look at the children and ask yourself, how did I leave the planet for them? Did I give back what I took, or did I only take? Did we leave it as it is, or did we try and change it for the better? It's our perspective. The paradigm has to shift. Bill Mollison speaks about living in harmony with nature. He says the only way we can achieve harmony is by abandoning the idea of superiority of the natural world. Our profound error has been looking at ourselves as masters of creation. Permaculture emerged in the 80s as a holistic design science connecting between disciplines and drawing correlations from the observation of nature and natural systems. Bill emphasized functional connections and guilds between plants and elements of the system to bring about efficient results and stack functions through time. So a prime example of this would be a food forest and the layers. There's a friend of mine in Montevideo. He runs Eco House and Garden at Kimbrickie. It's a demonstration site. He does permaculture stuff, school visits, shows children how to compost, worm farming, that kind of thing. He talks about ecology, the branch of biology that studies the relationships between organisms and the environment. But Peter says this word ecology relates back to the Greek word oikos, meaning house or home. It's not just the study of relationships, but to look after the place we live. He explains an ecologist is a person who looks after their home, or one who takes care of where they live. And this is something we can all do. We have within our primordial nature from our creation, we've been entrusted to be deputies on the earth, to be responsible. We are collectively transgressing against our own existence openly. Rachel Carson mentioned that the human race is challenged more than ever to demonstrate our mastery, not over nature, but over ourselves. And that was in the 1960s. We don't need another global discussion or another summit that attempts to take governments and global corporations to account. We don't need an Earth Day or a National Tree Day. It's coming up, but it's in the end of July, 28th, National Tree Day. But we don't need this. We don't need any more than we need a Mother's Day to show our gratitude to our own mother. Nice try. It's every day. Every day is Mother's Day. Thanks, Hallmark. All right, every day we need to show gratitude. We need to be responsible for our impact. Every day we need to think about building soil, growing trees, creating habitat, restoring balance. Every day we can address our impact and find ways to repair the damage and repair the earth. Every day the least we can do is divert our food scraps from the red bin and create soil. Just go outside, dig a hole, and put your stuff in the ground. Compost. Just bury it. All right, Graham Sate is a soil scientist and founder of Nutritech Solutions in Queensland. He was here a while ago speaking about repairing the damage of the earth and things like earth hour. He said the more important than shutting off our lights, more important than placing solar panels on our roofs, we have to make compost to mind our patch. This is our greatest contribution. On average in Australia, about 40% of our red bin is food waste. And this is easily converted to dynamic and viable compost, not more landfill. In reality, the human race has lost sync. We've lost our connection to not only our fitra and the created world, but ultimately to our Creator and our pact. The natural world was placed on the earth to remind us, to connect us, to get back to our original state. As the Quran says, وَأَوْفُوا بِالْأَهْدِ إِنَّ أَهْدَ كَانَ مَسْئُولًا. And keep your covenants well. Indeed, all covenants shall be asked about. In nature, nothing exists alone. We have lost this primordial connection, and the result is complete disconnect. Desensitized from the natural world and its destruction. No longer seeing ourselves as part of the biosphere, but only wanting to benefit from it to our own collective demise. We no longer see the world as existing with us, connected, but we're severed from it, and it exists for us to consume. We have gone from fitra to infitar. Now, what can we do? In the Musnad of Imam Ahmad, radiallahu anhu, the hadith of our beloved Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam states, if the hour comes when you are planting a tree, finish planting it. And I think from this we can understand a few things. The need to do good, regardless of the state around us. We need to intend good and not be discouraged from doing good, even if the hour is upon us. And also the imperative to plant trees and the connection of planting trees to the Sunnah. The blessing they bring in this world is the next, and the next as a charity. We should not be deterred. The hour is not here, not yet. But it's close. May Allah save us all. And we need to plant. So begin with a seed. Begin with a seed. Why? What's a seed? Where's Irfan? I want to pick on Irfan. What's a seed, Irfan? Say it. Can't hear a thing. All right, somebody say it. What's a seed? Start with a seed. Why? The beginning. What else? Huh? Huh? Potential. Yes. Okay. It's a beginning. Potential. Absolutely. It's hope. Seed is hope. So we have to make these connections, come back to the soil. We came from soil, from clay, right? هُوَ الَّذِي خَلَقَكُم مِّن طِينٍ. Allah has created us from this moist clay. Connect back to our families, connect to our friends and our communities. If we don't have a community, we make one. Begin, volunteer, and bring benefit to others. We have to step out of our insulated worlds. And we have to begin to orbit with other planets, still in the same galaxy. We need to understand truly our role upon the earth and to be deputies entrusted with a great task. And we need to begin our task and help others to begin theirs. May Allah give us all tawfiq. Sallallahu ala Sayyidina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa sallam. Jazakum Allah khair.